Okay, we should be just about 10 seconds to being live. So let's just make sure we are. Sorry, I'm just checking with my phone. Yes, there we go. We are live on Facebook. Hey, Nicole, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. How about yourself?
It's good. It feels a bit weird because we've just come off doing another interview in another group. So it feels a bit weird going, oh, hi, Nicole, how are you? Again, but we're in Better Business Builders group right now, which you've been a founding member of too. So thank you very much. And for the benefit of these guys, sorry, they're in Facebook, they're on and waiting. It's like, okay, sorry guys. So I have to check with my phone because there is that weird 10-second delay. So that's fine. So tell the people in this group a little bit about Nicole. Who is Nicole?
Oh, Nicole.
Whoa, who's that?
Oh, where do I start? Wow. So I'm a business owner. We have run a couple of businesses. I do have 3 boys. My eldest is now 15, which is crazy. And now I think I'm finally taking some steps myself into a different path, different journey, bringing a bit more of myself into the business.
So you've always been in business. I think you said that previously. So you've always been in business, worked from home predominantly or worked from outside or?
I've predominantly worked from home because with the kids, it was just easier to manage work and home and kids and all of that sort of thing. But I've always been in the background. I've always been in the administration side, sort of behind the computer, not visible. On purpose. I didn't really want to be, and I didn't see that as part of my role at the time.
So now is your time to shine.
Yeah, now is my time to shine.
And what changed? What changed for you that made it your time to shine?
I reached a point where I just wasn't really satisfied anymore, and I sort of thought that I needed to find something that was my own thing.
Yeah.
Away from the kids and away from business. And then I went on a journey. I started some coaching, which is where I met yourself a few years back. And now I know more now about what it is that I was searching for, because I found it. I thought it was purpose, but it was more getting in touch with my values. I think that was what has been a major difference as well.
And when you say getting in touch with their values, and I know it's the thing we talked about previously, tell me a way that you did that. How did you know that you had identified your value?
Well, I didn't. It's been a work in progress. It wasn't something that just happened. Talking to the mentors and going on journeys of learnings and workshops and the coaching, that's how it's all come about. And I think it was only maybe a month or 2 ago, over these last 3 years, that I've actually gone, that's what it is. Now I've got it.
Yeah.
And I remember there were some trainings that I did, and it was about, honing in on your message, and to hone in on your message and who you're speaking to, and knowing what your values are that you can bring. So then it's not about yourself, it's about, others. But it wasn't really until recently that I finally went, I got it.
And when you say I got it, so what would you say your top 3 values are now?
My top 3 values. I champion others, and I see myself as a real supportive person. So that's a big value for me, is to help others. So that's what I was initially searching for. Was when I thought I was looking for purpose, I thought it was about looking for, what I could bring to others and how I could bring joy. So that is a huge value for me. Family is a massive value, and creativity is huge. And blending all of that together is what I do now. I blend all of those pieces together.
Cool. And if you're not feeling those values are being addressed or whatever like that, do you feel out of whack, or do you now recognize that you're kind of not there, and how do you adjust it to get back?
Yeah, I recognize it now. I still get out of whack. It happens, but I recognize it now, and I know that I need to, get up and move around or shift or something, or change where I'm sitting or what I'm doing, my focus a little bit, and then bring it back together. It's much easier to bring everything back in alignment now.
Awareness is absolute key. So what is a tip or trick? And I know in the last interview, one of the great tips you gave us was wearing different shoes for different jobs. And even though you might go, oh, is that a tip? It is. It's things that people don't do. So when you're doing, when you recognize you're, not in alignment, or you're out of whack or whatever, how do you recognize it? Like, how have you set up something to recognize? Because quite often we recognize, like, 10 hours down the track, or maybe, 10 cakes down the track, or 10 bars of chocolate down the track. How do you recognize that?
Things are just not flowing. Like there's little hiccups, more hiccups become more often, and it's just not really working. So you mentioned shoes. If I've got a project that I want to work on, or if I've got a set goal in mind, now I will wear specific shoes for a specific job. It really helps to get my head in the game. I've recently got myself a stand-up desk, and I know that if I'm wanting to write, or if I'm wanting to get creative, then for me to feel, I need to feel connected to the process. So I will be barefoot, so I'm grounded, and I'll be standing up higher and like really using my whole body to get into writing my copy or whatever it is that I'm doing. That's how I work. And it was accepting that I wasn't, everyone is slightly different. And I think that that's when you can accept your nuances and, how you work. You might not be a morning person. You've been told, you've got to get up at this time and then lunch is that time. Well, part of the joys of running your own business is the fact that you can manipulate that time. You can use when you're most creative, or when you need to do your finances, and you can block out that time, because I'm in touch now with how that works for me. Yeah.
And awesome. I love the awareness. And you said, like, that we follow the 9 to 5, get up at this time, have breakfast at this time. And it sounds like you've kind of broken out of that cycle, so to speak. And the awareness in looking back at, that's how we've been taught for so long.
Yes. It's kind of school, it's the institution, it's everything. And I mean, for the masses, I guess it makes sense. You have to have some control
structure
of a society and structure. But when you are a bit independent, and you're able to, as I say, manipulate that time. I mean, there's obviously still structure that needs to be in place. Well, I believe there needs to be some structure. When you can manipulate it, and then you can use your energy, when it's at its peak, or understand when it's okay to just be like, bleh, sometimes it's okay to be.
And I love that, because that's key. I have a rule that if I'm feeling really bleh, and we want to wallow, or we want to do whatever, that I have a time limit on it. So depending on what it is, it's what actually got me through a lot of grief that we had in our family. Was like, for 24 hours, I would just wallow. I would allow myself to that. Now, that was quite more extreme. Now I'm kind of, okay, got to do something for the next 30 minutes that's away from whatever the hell this is. And if I want to sit down there and I want to swear about it, or want to scream about it, then I'm going to do that just for 10 minutes. And as soon as the 10 minutes or half an hour, whatever it is up, I'm going to move to a different place. Yep. And I found that works for me. You're so right. And sometimes it's hard at first to realize what works for you, because you've stayed in that normal, what everyone else wants you to do, without realizing that actually I can change it. I can do something different.
Well, that's only one thing that we can control is ourselves. And before my coaching journey, I would have just tried to dismiss negative feelings or sad feelings, like I just got to get on with it, sort of thing. Well, now I acknowledge them, because they are there for a reason. and squashing them down certainly isn't helpful.
Mm-hmm.
There is a time when you need to just, squash something down to be able to get back to it later. It might not be an appropriate time to yell and scream.
Yeah.
But by allowing myself that space now and being okay with it, and that it's there for a reason, is allows me to get back on, as you say, back on track quicker.
Yeah. One of the things, and I was listening to a podcast this morning actually by one of the members in this group, Justin, with Paul actually, and it was about the author, one of the authors and creators of the voice dialogue. And I know we've talked about this a little bit before, and in particular the book, which is Embracing Ourselves. And it was Hal Stone. So there's Hal and Sidra Stone are the authors, but Hal Stone has just actually passed away. But coming back to, you said that there's kind of, you're annoyed at one stage, or, something bursts out at another stage. It comes back to a conversation that we've had previously about maybe there's different selves, as in there's a worker self, there's an obedient self, there's an ego self. And I know you've looked into that a little bit. Has understanding that helped you to be more aware of what's going on with you?
Yeah, 100%. Because there's the excited self too. I've always been, I was told, as a child, well, okay, you've got a B, like where's the A, striving for more and more, but allowing myself to actually champion and be excited in a moment for something that I have achieved, and then still knowing that there's more out there, has been massive. It's been great for my business. It's been great for my family. I think my kids see more of me now than they would have before.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. It's fascinating stuff. And I know you've looked at it a bit. I've certainly looked at it. And quite often where we feel that out of match or out of alignment is that it's a disowned self. And the disowned self is someone that, like, we've pushed it away. Yeah. And we've pushed it away so much, but it kind of keeps coming back. That's why we quite often end up in an environment that we've been in before, going, oh my God, why have I not learned my lesson? Why am I here? And it's because you haven't. I quite often call that effect the beach ballitis. It's like pushing a beach ball down underwater for so long. Eventually, it's going to come back up somewhere, and it keeps coming back up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can change your environment, but you can't change, how you've got to where you are. And
yes. Right,
wrong, indifferent, good, bad, ugly. It's where I am now is because of all of that.
Yes. And I think, I forget the actual quote, but it goes something like, okay, you can't control what's happened to you. I get it. And I'm not saying, some people have had horrendous things, you only need to look around. But you can control who you're being right now and who you're choosing to be. It's the only thing, as you said before, that you actually have any control over. Yeah. So I know you mentioned just a few moments ago about, writing your message. And how did you learn to, or the importance of learning to put that into a structure? Because the creative part is like the left and right brain. So one side can be really creative, but if you can't put it into some kind of structure that it makes sense to the person that it needs to, how valuable has that been?
Oh, super valuable. I have to, before I started on this journey, I used to write things, and now I look back on what I wrote and I'm like, how did anyone even understand what I was saying? I don't even understand what I was saying. So, it's been massive learning. And now I refuse to write something and post it straight away. I'll write it, I'll walk away from it, and then I'll come back to it. And I might even do that a couple of times, depending on what I want out of the message, because there's general spelling mistakes, but also there's flow. There's, as you say, there's the structure. It just needs to make sense to the person who's reading it. It doesn't need to make sense to me as it's coming out of my brain.
Yeah, because we often have assumptions. I think we're all experts in certain areas, whether it's just experts in ourselves and what we know, that we tend to talk as if that person already knows. And we make these gross assumptions that but they actually don't know. So you're here in this kind of 10 steps ahead, and they're going, what is she talking about?
Yeah, I was talking to a client the other day, actually, very similar frustration she had was she posted something and it was kind of like follow instruction was about part of the post, and very few people got it right. And she was frustrated and she said, I don't understand. And so I asked her to read it as if it's not, as if it was the person she's speaking to. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a bit complicated. It did, and it's not about, it's just because she had a preconceived idea of how she wanted it to
Yeah.
be perceived and how she wanted people to take the action. And it wasn't clear in the message.
Certainly, look, if it's one thing that I've learned from some of the more online courses that we've been doing, and I mean this respectfully and everything like that, but people quite often have, and I'm one of these people, a bit of a lazy mind in terms of it's not really clear. They won't go searching for it. And I had a prime example of that just recently. Somebody sent me a message on Messenger and I skimmed it, but I got it completely wrong. Completely, like, so much so it was almost embarrassing. And I found with some of the online courses, we thought we were given enough information, but some of it was like people weren't clicking where they should. And it's like, what? And we had to kind of sit back and go, okay, this, and this. And literally do it as sometimes, and this sounds a bit silly, but you have to explain some things in a way as if you're talking to a child. And I don't mean that as if I'm going to treat you like you're stupid. I can't assume you know what I'm talking about. So I have to be able to communicate it to you that anyone can understand it.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I know with the copy, which is all content we write for everything, that we, because I was part of the learning, that we learned a structure. So there is an actual structure to it. How important is that for you, as you say, when you walk away? Do you come back and still put that structure on it?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I write now basically how I used to write, which was just to get things, brain dump. I just get it out of my head and get it in. And then when I come back to it, then I look at the structure and see, well, where does this bit need to fit? And I've learned myself that I often write what needs to go first, last. It's a pattern that I kind of have.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and that's okay. I still work with that. I still just work with my natural self.
Yeah.
But then when
So I think
back,
that's a bit of the what I call the brain dump. I write. And you're right. Quite often it's the last bit, as if you're signing off the letter, that actually needs to be the headline to catch them in the first place. Yeah. I think that's what a template that we call the blot, isn't it? Bottom line on top, isn't that one of them? Yeah. Cool. So tell me, how has it felt more recently to be and have got to this point that you're in your business right now?
I'm loving it. It's like I've got a new set of energy, a new lease on life sort of thing. I am really loving it now. Now I actually want to only do this. I don't want to get distracted by other things. I'm so impatient. I want to get my things out there, and so I'm excited. That's.
When you said about that you went looking and you did coaching and you did this and that and the other, how comfortable or uncomfortable was that time in your life?
Oh, so, it was massively uncomfortable. I wasn't sure of myself. I wasn't sure if that was the journey that I wanted to go. I didn't know anything. It was very uncertain times when I first.
And what kept you going at that time?
At that time, mentor, finding a group of people that I really resonated with. And I guess at some point I realized that it was important for me to just trust the journey. It wasn't necessarily about myself or anything like that. It was about trusting the journey. And that's something that I learned through the coaching is if I really resonate with the journey, or if I resonate with the process, then I have to trust in the process and trust in the journey and sink into it.
And that's an awesome place to be, and quite a challenging place for a lot of people to get, because they sit in a level of confusion. So, I really admire that you stuck with it. So if somebody was starting that kind of journey now, whether it be coaching or something else, and they're doing that, stuff's not going right, or feeling that resistance, what would your best piece of advice be to that person?
If you know why you're wanting to do something, you might not know what the end game is, you might not know the exact outcome, but if there's a reason that you've started something, stick with it, follow the process. It might take you on a journey that you don't, the end game isn't really what you want, or it might lead you to where you are. But if you're just sitting in confusion or isolation, and don't get me wrong, I still get confused and feel unsure, but knowing that I want to get to a certain place, or knowing now that who I want to work with as my clients, then that helps me keep going.
Awesome. Because what is it when people say that when there's something bigger than yourself that's important? It's like, I get like that. I get so excited. I get so frustrated at times, mostly at myself probably, but I get so excited about the stuff and how it can help and that. Did you know when you started that and that discomfort and that whatever, that this is what you will be doing?
Nope. It's the complete opposite of what I thought I was going to be doing.
Right.
Yeah. I've got the business head, but then I've also got a bit of a creative and airy-fairy sort of part about me. And I thought that I wanted to go more of the creative line, less business. Now I know I love to bring both together.
And I think that's what I'm kind of getting at as well, is when you started this, you were in that discomfort, you were in the confusion, but you just trusted the process was the process. And you've come to a place that you couldn't even have a reference point for knowing this was possible, because you had no idea.
No idea.
Isn't it fascinating how it shows up? And look, I personally have seen your journey, and like I'm blown away in those few short years to, as we said, the person that wouldn't even come on Facebook Live to look at you now. And I know I hear you say things, I'm nervous, or this is happening, but you still keep going. And I know you were nervous about doing this today, and it was like, no, just breathe. But it's like, I'm nervous, I can acknowledge it, but I'm going to still keep going. And I think that's a testament to what you're doing a lot of.
Yeah, I've put a lot of work into that, a huge amount of work into that. And now putting it in, so it's not about me. Now if I can take it away from it being about me, then I can do things like this. This is number 4, by the way, number 4 Facebook Live, all with you. About a year ago, I would have just hidden from you. The possibility of this coming up would have been, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Now I'm embracing it, and I'm loving it.
Yeah. And you're, as I said, you're doing so well. I'm blown away by how much you're like this flower that has gone like this, because certainly you were always the cheerleader. You were always the cheerleader and supporter of others. But now there's a new confidence that's almost tangible that wasn't there before.
No,
and it's a certainty.
You're right. Cheerleader for other people and championing other people. What I do different now, though, is I do champion myself.
Yes.
I do give myself some high fives and, get excited and say, I've looked back on my journey. I mean, 6 months ago, I think is probably about when it all started to click into place.
Yeah.
And, we've spoken before about listening to questions or words of others. And I think I finally started to listen, and then through that became a pattern, and that's how I developed where I am now. But it wasn't until I could acknowledge myself, I think, until I could hear that, really hear it.
And is it listening without the preconceived judgment?
Yeah, sometimes. I think so. Yeah. And, there's that word, there's that reciprocity. It's putting out and receiving back. I was definitely closed off to receiving.
Yeah.
100%.
Beautiful. What an amazing awareness. And again, look how far you come is totally amazing. And I can't wait to see how you are growing even more. So I'm getting excited by seeing the stuff that you're putting out. So I'm going to end off here. So thank you so much for being our interviewee today. And I know that the guys will have loved it as well, watching it. So we'll look out for the comments, and let's just keep in touch and meet the members. We'll be on next week again. And I trust that you've had as much value and fun as I've had talking to Nicole today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's okay. Bye for me.